Okay, great. So, welcome everybody. Lovely to see you here. Lovely to see you all here in the LBC Shrine Room. These events like this have been rare over the last 18 months, as you all probably are aware. And a very special welcome to everybody that's tuning in online from where we not know, but I'm sure there's people out there. So welcome to the LBC. Here we are in East London's very special kind of event, which we do once a year. So we're here to celebrate Bhante, we're here to celebrate Sangharakshita's birthday. Lots of photos of him on the shrine, beautiful shrine we've got here. We've got some special symbolic things on the shrine, which I'll say a bit more about in a minute. So we're celebrating Bhante. Bhante means teacher. It's an affectionate term that his disciples use. And we've already been celebrating his birthday. We've already been having some tea and cake in the LBC mural room, as we usually do on these kind at True Ratner events. And there's even a cake. Somebody cooked a cake for Bhante. Shradagita was telling me it's a walnut and coffee cake. Is a special cake for Bhante on the table out there. So part of the celebration today is not only us coming together, but for us to do a puja. Really, that's the main function of this session. And over the past few years, I don't know when these pujas actually started. I tried to clarify this today, but we're doing a puja each year for 108 years. I think it was probably around about 2004, 2005. Somebody decided that it would be a good idea if all the centres all around the world would do a puja on this day. So we're all participating. We need to sort of expand our mind in a very Mahayana kind of way and just think about all those other centres that are celebrating today. Actually, there's ordinations going on at Padmaloka as well as we speak, which is a very auspicious day to have ordinations. So Surya Gupta will be leading the puja a bit later on. And in between now and then there'll be three talks from people that have had a relationship, different kinds of relationships with Bhante. They're personal relationships and, if you like, not so personal relationships, but significant relationships. And they're all going to be speaking for around about 8 or 10 minutes about their relationship with Bhante. So we've got Kirsten, Aryavasin, and Dhammadinna. They'll be coming up in a minute. So before we do that, I just want to say a few things about the shrine and things we're going to be doing a bit later. So we have a special box in the basement that only gets opened on this day every year, and it's got particular implements in it. One thing is there's a candle. There's a pillar candle. And that candle has been at each of the pujas. So that candle will, if you like, connect up all the pujas in the future. I hope if it lasts. We're not going to light that candle, obviously, because we want it to last a long time. We're not going to light that candle from just before the puja. And also we've got this image of Amitabha on the shrine there. I mean, this is an image up here, but we've got this bronze image. I think it's made by Chintamani. And I think it was especially made for these sessions. And this is a vision that Bhante had of Amitabha in a meditation. So that, in a way, that's a significant event in Bhante's life that we've got represented on the shrine. And there's also something else that's in the box as well, and it's a photo album. So at the end of this session, we like to take a photo of everybody that's at this puja. And as me and Aryavasin have been doing, we've just been looking through the old photos and saying, oh, what are they doing? Oh, they're ordained now. Oh, look at this one. What have they got? So you'll be one of those faces in those photos. So please stay back for the photo. And also there's a book as well that you can sign your name in. That will be on reception as one of the attendees. So I think that's everything. So let's bring Bhante into the room. You know, I don't like talking about Bhante in the past tense. I only passed away a few years ago. I don't like to think of him like that because for me he's very much present in my life. And now we're going to hear from Kirsten in a moment about her relationship with Bhante and I guess how Bhante's affected her. Yeah, so let's welcome Kirsten. I'll give you a wave.
Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, very, very nice to be welcomed. Yeah, it's really nice to be here as well. So someone once asked me if characters in novels are real. I used to get asked questions like that because I studied English at university and people thought it was important to know things like that. And it's a bit of a weird question, isn't it? Because it kind of depends what you mean by real. And yeah, like, am I real? Is anything real? There's a lot of ways that you could go with it. So I first came to the LBC in the summer of 2017, and I came along to a sub-25 class, and gradually just started coming to more and more classes. And I used to come to Dharma night as well, I still do. And I'd often hear people talk about someone called Bhante, and they'd say, oh, Bhante, the founder of this Buddhist movement. That's a little kind of sentence that people would say when they were introducing Bhante. So I kind of had this like vague sense of this person, and I'd obviously like seen lots of photos of him. I kind of thought of him as a bit of a granddad, really. He doesn't actually look like my granddad, but yeah, maybe it's the glasses. Anyway, I had a vague sense of him, but I didn't really feel very connected to him. He didn't really mean anything to me when I first started coming along. But gradually, as I kind of formed more connections within the Sangha, I found out that you could actually meet Bhante, and you could go to a place called Adhisthana, and you could have a little chat with him, which seemed terrifying to me because I was like, oh, what would I say to him? He seems super wise. But actually, there did kind of spring up a longing to speak to Bhante. Even if I didn't have anything to say to him, I just wanted to say thanks because it was becoming clearer to me that he was having more of an impact on the direction of my life. So in winter 2018, I was on the retreat team for the winter retreat that's held at Adhisthana, and the team's all organised a few months in advance. So like it must have been the summer or early autumn. I thought, oh great, maybe I'll get a chance to speak to Bhante. And unfortunately I didn't because he died in that October. I remember the day that I found out that he died, I was at work and I got the email through, and even though I hadn't met him, I did just feel this real kind of pang, both at having lost the opportunity to actually meet him in person, but also something I think a bit broader of, I could feel the impact that was going to have. I could feel that was a kind of seismic moment in the movement, and I did feel it felt important to be part of that in a way. Interestingly, I didn't go to his funeral. There was something in me that just felt, oh, I'm not quite important enough to go because I never met him. And I think I do really regret that actually. If that happened now, I'd probably make a different decision. But the first time that I actually went to Adhisthana was that winter in 2018, and the thing that really struck me about being there was just seeing this mound of earth. It was still raw earth at that point. It was just kind of clods of clay, and there were little. It was kind of peppered with offerings that people had made at the funeral, and there were still dried flowers strewn on it. And seeing that mound was the moment that I actually really felt connected to Bhante. It was something about the physicality of, like, knowing that he was there, feeling that proximity with him, and also that was the moment at which I realised that I could actually still have a relationship with him, even though I hadn't been able to meet him physically. So the way that I've got to know Bhante, I'm very lucky. I live with lots of people that knew him, like Dhammadinna, and so I get to hear all of these stories and anecdotes and little witticisms that he said, and people's memories of him. And so that's really how I've kind of been able to build my picture of him. And then the other way that I really like connecting to Bhante is through listening to his talks. So I am trying to listen to all of them. I think I've done about 40. It's taken me a long time. But I really love listening to him because, I love his idiosyncratic syntax and pronunciation. I think that's really great. But I think there's just something that is really conveyed when he's talking, like something of his energy and his conviction of the truth of the Dharma, and the way that he really expresses that just comes through. So yeah, I find it really energizing listening to him, and I do laugh at some of his jokes, probably not all of them. He laughs at them anyway, so it's all right. Yeah, so it's nice kind of having his voice, and actually I'm reading Facing Mount Kachinjunga at the moment, and when I'm reading it, I'm kind of reading it as if it's like he's telling me his own story. That's another way that I really feel that I can connect to him. So I guess coming back to that question of that someone asked me, like, are characters in novels real? And I mean, objectively, I guess the answer is no to that. They can't sit in a room. But the answer that I gave when that person asked me the question was actually yes. I think the effect that characters have on us are real. If I think about characters that have influenced me, Heathcliff, Mr. Darcy, Harry Potter, they've all had an influence on me at some point in my life, and that does feel real actually. And in the same way, obviously Bhante was a real man, but my connection with him is taking place on this on a more mythic plane, but to me he still feels very real. Yeah, that's my relationship with Bhante.
Thanks very much, Kirsten. Now let's hear from Aryavasin.
Hello. Okay, so I recently got ordained, and I thought of three things that that I'm grateful to Bhante for, and those three things I kind of put them, they came together in my this year when I got ordained. I had the feeling that I had a connection in terms with the Buddha. I had a lineage, and. I feel that I have a connection with all three things. Perhaps I'm a bit not clear, but I'm grateful for Triratna. I think that's what it is about. I think Bhante, his way of founding Triratna and bringing on. I can see now that I have all the three jewels are in Triratna, at least for me. Initially, when I first came, it was the Dharma first. So. Even though when I first came, I did have resistance towards reading specifically Bhante stuff, and I don't know why. I was doing the Mitra study, but it was, in terms of reading books, I was reading elsewhere. I was reading other teachers. In hindsight, maybe it's a good thing, because in the end, I could compare, and actually, when I started reading Bhantes, they were much more clearer. So I think my understanding of the Dharma became clearer after. So that was. That was the first thing, just clarity in the Dharma. By comparison with other things, it was much clearer. And the second was Sangha. I didn't have an interest in Sangha when I first came. I was looking for the Buddha. But then maybe it was, one of his disciples, Maitreya, he insisted of me creating. He always, when I meet him, he's always one thing. He says, "Who are your friends?" So he wants to know about my friends. That's what he's interested about. The last 12 years, that's what he always asked me. That was his interest, friendship and Sangha. Perhaps you could see that that wasn't my interest wasn't there as much as it was, but let's say, idealistically on the Buddha. But then now I feel, 12 years later, I feel very well connected, and I have lots of friends. And it is thanks to Bhante, and through Maitreya Bandhu, but I guess he's got it from Bhante. And this, I guess probably everybody knows, is a certain lifestyle. It's a lifestyle of, Triratna it's one thing that they're really good at is Sangha, creating Sangha and friendships. So I thought I got that without looking for it. And then the third one, which I started to say in the beginning, was the Buddha. So I finally, when I got ordained this year, I felt like I had a lineage connected with the Buddha back. Until now, I've been blocking it. And I realized when I've been blocking it, I don't know why I've been blocking it, because maybe I didn't want to change. But in 2018, I started doing Karuna appeals as a volunteer. I did 2 of them, and as part of the Karuna appeals, I started reading Bhante's book, Ambedkar and Buddhism, which I really enjoyed. And as I always enjoyed his writing. And then I could see Ambedkar. Thanks to him and his Bhante's writing, I really saw Ambedkar. I started thinking to myself, oh, he's a bodhisattva, and I really admired Ambedkar. And then one appeal, the other appeal, I started thinking, oh, hold on, Bhante was doing the same thing, was doing the same kind of work. He continued his work, Ambedkar's work in India, and more so even in Britain. And I do know that Sri Ratna is everywhere in the world now, so over 30 countries. So then, it was like October 2018, when I started thinking, oh, Bhante must have been a bodhisattva, comparing with what he's done. So that's when I allowed him in, and it was just before I think he passed away. So I do feel sad, actually. I had a connection with Bhante just before he passed away. And when I went to the funeral, that's what I remember thinking, that's a shame. Why it took me so long, and why did I do that? But I often do silly things like that, so it was one of those things that I did. And then ordination, I think, followed after that, after allowing Bhante in. I have met him, I did meet him in person, but again, I was a bit tongue-tied and I didn't know what to ask. I did go, but I didn't know what to ask. I asked for a few practical things which were helpful, but it wasn't nothing insightful. Nothing insightful came to mind. And yeah, it didn't offer anything either. So I suppose that. But I'm really enjoying. I've started reading his memoirs, and I'm really enjoying those. And I started after. I started after he passed away, and I'm really enjoying those books. I think I'm nearly finished on his memoirs. And then I think it's very, very valuable, his writing and his talks. I guess like most people do say that they're very, very valuable. But it's the whole picture. I think it's the whole thing. It's not just his interpretation of the Dharma. It's the Sangha and the Buddha. I think it's probably that's. I did start with that. I wanted to have a connection with the Buddha, and in one way, that's what I got in the end, after the things that I wasn't looking for. So, I am really grateful for Triratna, and directly through him a bit, but mainly from his disciples and the system of. I am a bit practical, and I think this really works. It has worked for me. It's really worked by comparison to how I was when I first came. I've changed a lot. Still need to change, but I've got the tools. I've got a practical thing which I can keep practicing, and I have faith. I guess in a Buddhist way of having faith that I've tried it works, and I keep going, and definitely have a feeling that it does work. So that's my gratitude to Bhante and to Triratna overall. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Aryavasin, and now Dhammadinna. Let's welcome Dhammadinna.
I'm very short. So I've been very fortunate to have known Bhante for 48 years of our lives. So I met him when I was just 24, and he was in his mid-40s, and it was on my very first retreat with Triratna, my very first connection with Triratna. So I met him, but he didn't really meet me, because I'd been on a retreat a couple of days, and he just turned up on the retreat from the States, I think, and he just sat in the lounge. He was very, very friendly, and it was I think the far picture manifestation of Sangharakshita with the late 60s, early 70s, very long hair, slightly grubby, crumply orange robe with an orange polo neck, woolly Tibetan mala, slippers and a shawl. So kind of unusual figure that intrigued me because he didn't look like what a Buddhist monk was supposed to look like according to me. So I was intrigued by him then, and then in the evening there was a tape of one of his lectures played on a tape recorder and he sat next to it. And so I'm on my first retreat, I'm 24, I've learnt to meditate, I've been interested in Buddhism for a while, I finally got to hear a Dharma talk and it had a huge impact on me. And I think it was a combination of Bhante's clarity, it's very clear, and it was the profundity and the depth, and I was just ready for it. And it just struck me very strongly, it resonated very deeply with me. And I think later I thought, oh, I've had a direct line to the Dharma's truth through this man, through Bhante. So at that moment I think he became my teacher. But it was a very short meeting because it was just that day. And then he disappeared because that night apparently he was very, very sick and he had bronchial pneumonia and apparently almost died. So it's like this mythical figure, and then he must have been taken away to hospital or to recuperate, and he went back to the States. So I didn't see him again for another couple of months. It was quite strange, really. Meanwhile, I was very keen, so I went to everything at the centre that I was going to. And eventually he came back and started to teach meditation classes and so on. And I, in those days, was very, very shy. So I kind of wanted to disappear into the wallpaper if I could, but I think eventually he noticed me because I was at everything, and also I realised he needed help with some things like making the teas to do everything. And so over time, I'm really grateful for this. He stepped towards me, he encouraged me, he befriended me, and he took my spiritual aspirations seriously. And that means an awful lot, doesn't it, when someone does that for you at that stage of your life. And, you know, I helped her. And I think based on that, over time, we became friends. I think I had a friendship with Bhante that developed over the years. And it's funny thinking of him as a friend, because he's not like any other friendship that you've had with anyone else, with my peers or anyone I know, any of my friends. Just because of who he was and the kind of the vastness of his mind and his great kindness and his intense contact with the Dharma. He's just an unusual person to have a friendship with. And because he encouraged me and stepped towards me and befriended me, I trusted him. And I'm still in my 20s, and I just shared a lot of things with him. I told him lots of things about myself and my family background and my conditioning. And when he wasn't there, I wrote him very, very long letters. Poor man, stream of consciousness, and I've not got very good handwriting. And anyway, I think somewhere there in Adhisthana, and if I ever read them, I'd be terribly embarrassed. But he read them. And so he got to know me. I shared myself. And I think because I did so honestly, that enabled him on occasions to give me some very direct, strong feedback, a bit like a beam of light and illumination on certain aspects of my character and attitudes and conditioning and so on that I wasn't really conscious of. So that it was very, very strong sometimes, but it enabled me to see those things about myself and work on them and change them. And it was mainly done very, very kindly. He was very, very kind to me throughout my life, the time we knew each other. Sometimes, however, David Mitchell will resonate with this. Sometimes, however, he would give you feedback through humour. And he was a terrible tease, wasn't he, David Mitchell? He could tease and tease, just to kind of make you see something about yourself. So he had a wicked sense of humour, which actually I loved. I did work for him and with him on various projects throughout our lives, and in that aspect of things he could be demanding and actually really quite critical. I remember once he asked me to write an article for a Buddhist magazine, and I took him the first draft, and basically he just ripped it to shreds and said, go away and start again, write it again. And in a way that's a training, isn't it, to kind of think more clearly, to be more thorough, to take more responsibility for what you're doing, to think about the effect that article might have. But at the time it was challenging. So from that first meeting, I said he became my teacher. Of course, that unfolded over the years that I knew him. He carried on teaching. So I was fortunate to be at meditation classes with him, on retreats with him. I listened to lots of his tape lectures and was very lucky to be at some of those tape lectures live. So two of my favourites are Creative Symbols of the Tantric Path to Enlightenment and the Vimalakirti Nidesha series. So you might know those lectures, I don't know, but the second series, the Vimalakirti, was in quite a large hall. He was up on a dais with lots of people, maybe a couple of hundreds, 200 people. But he was so inspired giving that series of lectures, week after 8 weeks, week after week after week. We'd go, more and more people would come, and we were all sort of lifted up in some other world. And people had come from all over London, perhaps maybe all over England, to be at those lectures. And there was a bit of a myth that many of us got lost on our way home because we were so kind of affected by that experience that we didn't know what we were doing or where we were going. So that's one aspect of teaching I received from all his books. And then I was also fortunate to be in several seminars with him. So that's a very different situation, quite intimate, where you'd sit around in a room with maybe half a dozen people, and Bhante would unfold a seminar, a text in seminar style. So if you interacted, there'd be questions and answers. And again, that was another extraordinary experience. It's quite hard to describe what Bhante was like in those days. When he was old, he still had a tremendous amount of energy, but it was more subtle in those days. The energy coming off him sometimes was very, very powerful. It was all, you have to sort of step back. And I know being in a live lecture series of his, I almost felt like I just needed to go to sleep. The energy was so strong. So he was definitely my teacher. And then he was also, of course, my preceptor. I was ordained about 3 years after I first came along, and today is my order birthday. I was ordained on Bhante's birthday. So I'm always slightly eclipsed by Bhante's birthday. Anyway, during my private ordination, he gave me my name, Dhammadinna, which means giver of the Dharma. And I think he gave me that name because he knew from knowing me that I was very keen on Dharma study. But he'd also once given us a Dharma quiz, a bunch of us, as a part of our ordination training. I knew all the answers. Nobody likes a clever clog, I discovered afterwards. Anyway, I think he remembered that about me, and he would tease me about it in later years. Oh yes, Dhammadinna, that quiz, and I'd feel slightly embarrassed. And also at my private ordination, he gave me my visualization practice, which is Green Tara. So that's a practice which I've treasured and talked about with him over many years and practice regularly. So that gift, I think, brings about a very strong mythic, archetypal, symbolic connection with the person who gives you that practice. And I do the practice regularly, and he's present when I do the sadhana practice. He's always there. He's part of the practice. I remember the private ordination, and I remember other aspects of him leading the practice. So in some ways, because of that, it really doesn't matter that he's not here physically. He's very present for me in my life. So my last conversation with Bhante was in 2017, the year before he died, at Adhisthana. And I was there on a Green Tara retreat, and I'd been to see him, so we'd had an hour together. We talked about all kinds of things, and I was leaving to go to lunch, and I just had this desire, and I put my head back into the room. So by this time he's in his 90s, an old man in an armchair, very different from the original meeting. And I just said to him, "Oh, Bhante, I'm so grateful to you for giving me the Green Tara practice." And he just put his hands together and bowed his head. Very devotional, very humble, great humility. And he said, "And we know who we received it from, don't we?" Which is Chetal Sanjay Dorji, which is the teacher that gave him that practice. We said that in unison, Chetal Sanjay Dorji. And then I left. But that was my last physical memory of him. It's such a beautiful memory because there's so many qualities, Bhante, but that devotion to his teacher, to Green Tara, to the Buddha, to that practice, very, very strong. So it's a very long relationship, extended over a long time. I can only tell you little bits, and many, many stories I could tell. Many different facets to that relationship. And it's still very much alive for me today. So I do feel very fortunate that I knew him, and I spent so much time with him, and I knew him through that period of time. And I hope that I meet him in lives to come.
Dhammadinna. Yeah, it's just lovely to hear all these different relationships, and I'm particularly intrigued by your stories, Dhammadinna, because I know how long you go back with Bhante, and it just made me think about, you know, if you didn't have the opportunity to see Bhante, he used to say, if you want to get to know him, read his books. So do think about that. You know, he's written so many things. But I was also thinking about my last meeting with Bhante. I couldn't help it, which was on New Year's Eve in 2017. So I was on this winter retreat that Kirsten, the year before, that Kirsten was talking about, and I saw him on New Year's Eve. I was very lucky. We talked about lots of things, but then when we parted, maybe it wasn't so profound, but we just wished each other Happy New Year. It was, in a way, it's very English parting. We shook hands, and that was it. But yeah, that was the last time I saw him. That was my short rendition of Bhante. So let's thank all the speakers again for So Garbhavati, would you like the special candle? The one in front of Amitabha needs to be lit up as well. So what I'm going to do now is to hand over to Suri Gupta, who is the chair of the LBC here.
And let's salute the shrine. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Dhamaya. Namo Namo Sanghaya. Namo Sanghaya. Namo Namah. Namo Namah. Om. Hom. Hom. So it's wonderful to be here with you, and it feels an honour really to be conducting our puja, and I want to thank the speakers as well, and actually everyone for putting this event together today. Garbhavati for organising us, Jarika for hosting, the wonderful shrine makers. Thank you, Danny. For all of you who've come today, all of you at home watching this, I really want to thank you all. It's just it is a very significant occasion, and I think our speakers really brought out the sort of some of the different facets of Bhante so beautifully, and how you can have a relationship really with someone you've never met, you know, who's died really before you've had the chance to meet them, as well as that sort of intimate relationship that Dhammadinna, you know, was describing. And I think all our images on the shrine of all the pictures and photos we've got there really shows how many different aspects there were to him. And this is just a few. But fundamentally, you know, what he's done, which I think our speakers really brought out, was, you know, introduced us all, many of us, all of us here, in a way to the Buddha, to, you know, in terms of showing his conviction, his inspiration of the Buddha, and then explicating, elucidating the teachings in a way that we could actually practice, that could actually make a difference in our lives. And so we wouldn't be here, actually, if he hadn't done that. And then, of course, he's also sort of brought alive the importance of Sangha, brought alive the importance of friendship, that it's in relationship with others where you actually experience the truth of the teachings. I'm very grateful to Bhante and to, I wouldn't be here obviously without Bhante. And I thought of one of my last meetings with him. I was very fortunate. I met him 3 times in the year that before he died, and on one of the occasions I'd become chair, he sort of held my hand and was just like, I have every confidence, and he just looked so delighted, in me, in the fact that I'd become chair. I was really sort of taken aback by that, actually. And I just felt actually there was a real sense that all of his work keeps being passed on in many different ways through centres around the world, through every individual practitioner, every individual chair, every individual person who sort of steps up and takes some responsibility, who makes a friend with another person, who makes tea at a class, whatever it is, his inspiration of the Buddha is being passed on. And it just feels sort of great that we're marking this, and we have this aspiration to mark it for the next 100 and so years. I won't be around, none of us probably will be around at that point, but let's create that sort of intention that actually the inspiration of the Buddha, the kind of accessibility and the depth of the Dharma, and the opportunity to actually have friends on the path continue for the next 100 or so years. So we're going to do the threefold puja, and the threefold puja, of course, was the puja that Bhante devised. We do another puja, the sevenfold puja, which he's drawn from sort of ancient teachings, but this is a puja that he actually devised, a puja that actually we could do sort of simply. It's three parts, this puja, and it is a very accessible puja, so we often do it on sort of newcomers retreats, and we do it in all kinds of settings actually. So I'm very pleased we're doing this puja. And in terms of what we've got in this puja, let me get my notes for that. We'll start with just a short meditation to prepare ourselves for the sort of ceremony, if you like. Then we've got a choir who's going to, at the end of the short meditation, I'll ring a bell and our choir will stand, and we'll hear a short introduction to what they're going to be doing by Vishvanchara. And that's just wonderful that we can have a puja that has all these elements to it. So very happy that we're having a choir. And then we'll start the puja. And after the first section, Deva Mitra will read one of Bhante's poems. And it's a poem, there's lots, he wrote quite a lot of poems, but it's a poem actually that I don't think we hear that often. And I think it's a poem that, I sort of think is very beautiful. So I'm really pleased that Deva Mitra will read one of Bhante's poems called Petals. Then we'll have, after the second section, we'll have Aryavasin will do the Amitabha mantra. And Amitabha, the Buddha of the setting sun, the Buddha of love and compassion, was part of Bhante. Bhante had this vision of Amitabha, so we'll hear the mantra from Aryavasin. And in the final section, we're going to end musically as well. So we're starting musically through voice, and we're going to end musically with Matt, playing a little solo, or big solo, a solo on his saxophone. So we'll hear from Matt. And of course, as I said, it's great to have these different elements of puja, but one of the things that Bhante really contributed really for Buddhism through the world was around the relationship with the arts, that the Dharma could really express itself in the arts. So it's great to have our musical interludes. And then I'll ring a bell and we'll end then. And I'll remind, we'll stay behind for the photo. We'll do the photo in the shrine room. Yeah. So let's get ourselves ready. A short meditation. So we're going to sing an arrangement by Dhammadinna of the farewell of a man called Pingya. And this man called Pingya appears in a very early sutta, the Sutta Nipata, I think. Yes, that's right. And when he met the Buddha, he was already old. And he says, in the sutta, he says, I can't wander around with the Buddha, I can't walk a long way and be with the Buddha all the time, but he constantly sees the Buddha in his mind's eye. And then he eventually praises the Buddha, and then he vows to achieve enlightenment, and he has complete faith that he will, through his faith, through seeing the Buddha in his mind's eye all the time. And I was reminded of when Kirsten was speaking, of seeing your teacher in your mind's eye, and it's a very moving account. So we're going to sing the final few phrases of his farewell, where he talks about becoming enlightened himself through his teacher, through his faith in his teacher. So Kalyan Bhatta is going to read from the Sutta Nipata of the Pingya's praises of the way to the beyond and the Buddha, and then we'll have the music.
They call him Buddha, enlightened, awake, dissolving darkness, with total vision and knowing the world to its ends. He has gone beyond all the states of being and becoming. He has no inner poison drives. He is a total elimination of suffering. It is like a bird that leaves the bushes of the scrubland and flies to the fruit trees of the forest. I too have left the bleary half-light of opinions. Like a swan I have reached a great lake. This prince, this beam of light, Gautama, was the only one who dissolved the darkness. This man Gautama is a universe of wisdom and a world of understanding. A teacher whose Dhamma is the way things are, instant, immediate, and visible all around, eroding desire without harmful side effects, with nothing else quite like it anywhere in the world. There was a time when riding in the mud of the swamps, I could only drift from one stone to the next. But then I saw the Sambuddha fully awake and free from defilements. This man is Sambuddha. He has opened the curtains and woken up. There are no more questions for the doubtful who come to him. The teacher has answered them all. Yes, I shall go there. I shall go beyond change. I shall go beyond formations. I shall go beyond comparison. There are no more doubts. You may consider this as mind released.
I shall go
beyond change. Yes, I shall go there, I shall go beyond change. Yes, I shall go there, I shall go beyond change. Yes, I shall go there, I shall go beyond change. I shall go there beyond nation. I shall go beyond change. There I'll go beyond change. Yes, I shall go beyond change. There shall go beyond change. I shall go beyond comparison. There I'll go beyond change. I shall go beyond change. Yes, I'll go beyond change. Yes, I'll go there beyond comparison. There I'll go beyond change. Yes, I'll go beyond change. I shall go beyond formations. I shall go beyond comparisons. There are no more doubts. You may consider this as mind released.
The threefold puja. Open in reverence. We reverence the Buddha.
We reverence the Buddha,
The perfectly enlightened one.
the perfectly enlightened one,
The shower of the way.
the shower of the way.
We reverence the Dharma.
We reverence the Dhamma,
The teaching of the Buddha,
the teaching of the Buddha,
which leads from darkness to light.
which leads from darkness to light.
We reverence the Sangha,
We reverence the Sangha,
the fellowship of the Buddha's disciples,
the fellowship of the Buddha's disciples,
that inspires and guides.
that inspires and guides.
Petals of the lilac, petals from mauve and white plumes, from orchard apple blossom, foamy behind brick walls, from gnarled grey branches, green lofty crowns from many-candled chestnut, petals of hawthorn, plum, pear, cherry, rambling rose, bush rose, bougainvillea, elder, lime, rowan, petals dropping on running water, on sunlit, silent, green scum, pink and white, confetti, on gleaming black car roofs, petals borne over ancient chimneys, swept down dim avenues, falling like rain, like seed, like swan's down, flying like spindrift against blue sky, like white fleck dawn birds, petals tossed, scattered, whirling, spiraling, littered down lonely furrows, sticking to mud-caked boots, petals blowing into eye, hair, hands, drifting over naked bodies of lovers, collecting in crimson pools, in purple heaps, pink streams along country roads, rivers of petals to the horizon, rising tide of petals throughout the world, flooding earth, surging into the sky, cloudburst, apocalypse of petals, spring's manifesto of petal poets, signature of petals, red petals.
Reverence to the three jewels. We reverence the Buddha.
We reverence the Buddha
And aspire to follow him.
and aspire to follow him.
The Buddha was born as we are born.
The Buddha was born as we are born.
What the Buddha overcame, we too can overcome.
What the Buddha overcame, we too can overcome.
What the Buddha attained, we too can attain.
What the Buddha attained, we too can attain.
We reverence the Dharma and aspire to follow it.
We reverence the Dharma and aspire to follow it.
With body, speech and mind until the end.
With body, speech and mind until the end.
The truth in all its aspects.
The truth in all its aspects.
The path in all its stages.
The path in all its stages.
We aspire to study.
We aspire to study,
Practice.
practice,
Realize.
realize.
We reverence the Sangha and aspire to follow it.
We reverence the Sangha and aspire to follow it.
The fellowship of those who tread the way.
The fellowship of those who tread the way.
As one by one we make our own commitment.
As one by one we make our own commitment.
An ever-widening circle.
An ever-widening circle.
The Sangha grows.
The Sangha grows.
Om Amiteva Hri. 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 Om Amiteva Hri.
Om Amiteva Hri. Om Amiteva Hri.
Offerings to the Buddha. Reverencing the Buddha.
Reverencing the Buddha.
We offer flowers.
We offer flowers.
Flowers that today are fresh and sweetly blooming.
Flowers that today are fresh and sweetly blooming.
Flowers that tomorrow are faded and fallen.
Flowers that tomorrow are faded and fallen.
Our bodies too,
Our bodies too,
like flowers,
like flowers,
will pass away.
will pass away.
Reverencing the Buddha.
Reverencing the Buddha.
We offer candles
We offer candles
to him who is the light.
to him who is the light.
We offer light.
We offer light.
From his greater lamp, a lesser lamp we light within us.
From his greater lamp, a lesser lamp we light within us.
The lamp of Bodhi,
The lamp of Bodhi,
shining within our hearts.
shining within our hearts.
Reverencing the Buddha.
Reverencing the Buddha,
We offer incense.
we offer incense.
Incense whose fragrance pervades the air.
Incense whose fragrance pervades the air.
The fragrance of the perfect life.
The fragrance of the perfect life.
Sweeter than incense.
Sweeter than incense.
Spreads in all directions.
Spreads in all directions.
Throughout the world.
Throughout the world.
So, thank you for joining us. And those of us who are here can, in person, when you're ready, we can assemble for our photo, which Adoya will organise us. Thank you.